The goat needed an hour and a half of braising, so we elected to wait it out in my apartment. Elated by the prospect of a good dinner, Fillmore took the steps 2 at a time, outdistancing me and reaching my landing a whole floor ahead. I heard him gasp, "Mr. Casbarian!" Rounding the top step, I discovered Fillmore flapping his arms at a small, balding man with a sword. "What are you doing here?" The man grinned, snared Fillmore's hand, and shook it. "Dr. Fillmore!" And to me, "Dr. Brown?" I, of course, made no reply to this, but Mr. Casbarian took that as an affirmation and bowed formally. Punctuated with a small flourish of his scabbard, it came off quite well. Only then did he respond to Fillmore's question. "Why, your secretary arranged an appointment, as instructed by you, enthusiastically, confidently, yesterday, and I'm flattered and pleased to see you both. 20 minutes late, but, as you remember, Dr. Fillmore, a man like me does not live by hard and fast rules and regulations either." With that, he drew his sword and performed a short dance in my hallway, as though demonstrating how a man who dislikes hard and fast rules might behave. "Mr. Casbarian." It sounded like a sigh, but Mr. Casbarian took it as an appeal and turned questioningly to Fillmore, who had no choice but to continue. "I'm sorry, but I need to consult with Dr. Brown in private for just a minute. Will you excuse us?" "Certainly." Having prepared my escape from the moment I first saw the sword, I held my key at the ready. I unlocked the door, tried to close it on Fillmore, remembered the Tianjin braised goat, and gave in. Fillmore rushed through and sank into a chair. On the other side of the wall, Mr. Casbarian seemed to be contentedly chanting to himself in a language other than English. I leaned against the door and nodded toward the sound. "Mr. Casbarian's here." Fillmore looked up, smiled, shrugged. "Fillmore?" "Yes." "Who is Mr. Casbarian?" "Mr. Casbarian. Well, did you ever see that TV show in the 70s, Danger Man?" "Sure." "He was the producer." Fillmore sat quietly, as if that had somehow explained everything. In spite of myself, I was slightly impressed. Danger Man, after all, had been a hell of a guy. A swashbuckling, crime-fighting, girl-getting, heroic type, always able to pull it off at the last minute. I'd begun to run back through my favorite episodes, but caught the motion. Why is the producer of Danger Man fencing outside my door? "I don't know." "You don't know?" "I don't know why he's fencing." Fillmore puffed out his cheeks, exhaled. "I think he might be here because I referred him to you, or told my secretary to." "You think so?" "I did, but I forgot. After the Mrs. Quilp thing, it derailed me." We could hear the sound of Mr. Casbarian's sword whipping through the air trapped in my hallway, accompanied by, "Take that, and that, and that, and that, and that." "Mr. Casbarian, then, is your patient?" "No," said Fillmore carefully. "He's yours." "Ha! Out of the fucking question." "I don't see why not, man. Now that Mrs. Quilp's dead, you don't even have one." "Mrs. Quilp isn't dead. I mean, she is, but my patient isn't. Anyway, I'm not a psychologist anymore. I'm a private detective." "A detective, I know, but maybe you could just—" "Nope. I really thought you might enjoy him." I considered this, cracked open the door to reveal a beaming, waving Mr. Casbarian, and closed it without comment. "The thing is," Fillmore went on, "after running this super character through his paces year after year, he began to believe himself superior to Danger Man and capable of performing heroic deeds." "You mean—" "I'm not finished." Fillmore reached for a nearby empty glass, raised it beseechingly in my direction, but I made no move. "The great part is, he is." "Is what?" "Mr. Casbarian seems to have somehow, psychodynamically, grafted Danger Man's abilities onto himself."